Wednesday, February 11th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we review the new anime movie, well, new-ish anime movie, Sword of the Stranger.
Let's do this.
So after the New York Comic Con, we thought, hey, we came into the city. We want to do something other than just the con. Otherwise, why'd we take the train into the city? So we figured we'd go and see Coraline in 3D.
Well, first we figured we'd go to the sushi conveyor belt.
Well, before
and gorge ourselves on the expensive plates.
Before that even, we decided, hey, let's get up early, go into the city, go downtown, and get some dim sum. And I think we all woke up independently and said, yeah, going back to sleep.
I could have done the dim sum, but no one else was gonna. You can't really dim sum on your own. That doesn't work too well.
No, it doesn't.
They're like, dim sum for one. They're like, huh? Usually it's like, dim sum for 8. That's more the correct number.
Plus, dim sum for one, you're just gonna find me dead with like 9 empty egg custard plates.
I know, right? It's like, that's the other thing, is that you want to get a variety when you dim sum. You don't want to get a whole bunch of one thing, but the smallest servings are like 4 dumplings. So it's like, if you take the dumplings, you got to eat 4 of them. But if you got 4 people, you can eat 1 dumpling of each kind, and you're all good.
So we ate a ton of kaiten sushi, like probably more than we should have.
That was fun.
I had an unnecessarily large beer. Like it was larger than was prudent, shall we say.
It was a salaryman's beer.
It was the kind of thing where you got to drink it, slam it down on the table, and go. But, all right, we did that, and we wanted to do something else and call it a night. So, all right, let's head down to the AMC. Let's see Coraline in 3D. I'm excited.
Normally, I don't want to go to the movie theater so much unless it's something I'm not going to see otherwise.
Yeah, this was...
Such as the topic of the show, or a 3D movie, which I can never see at home because it's 3D.
It was crazy because we also just went to see the movie we're talking about tonight. Like,
I know, right? So it's like I hadn't been to a movie theater. I get that wasn't, like the one that shows the one at what's the school?
The Sunshine?
No, the one where we went to see
Anyway, indie art films at indie art theaters. Or anime
the one where we
movies
went to see
at indie art theaters. The point
Oshi's movie, Skycrawlers, and the other one.
Anyway,
yeah.
The point is, it was kind of a decadent weekend. We took cabs everywhere because when there's 3 people, it's really not that much more expensive.
Well, we're going crosstown and going to places that, you could only get to by cab, feet, and bus.
Plus cab, like $8. Bus fare for 3 people, $6.
Well, free because I have infinite bus.
Fine, $4 because I don't.
Okay.
I don't take buses.
All right.
But, all right, so we take a cab over to the AMC, and we go in, and the 5 o'clock showing sold out, but there's a 7:10. So, all right, let's go. Oh, wait a minute. It's not Saturday. It's Sunday. That means I have to be up at work at, like, 4:30, so no, I can't do it. I'd already stayed up late every other night that week. It was... And think about this. Because I went to the New York Comic Con Saturday and Sunday, and I stayed out late Friday, I basically went into the city every day with no break for last week, the weekend, and now this week. Wasn't doing well, so I bailed. I bailed. I walked out. I was going to take the train home and go to bed. So Scott and Emily, all right, they're going to stick around. They're going to see the 7:10 showing. They're debating the logistics of this. They're standing at the kiosk, and apparently it sold out while they were buying the tickets.
Yeah, I mean, it's a touch screen to buy tickets, so there's no actual ticket selling people. So I push the buttons, and I'm like, tickets, 7 o'clock, 2, purchase, slide card, and it's like, sold out, sorry. I'm like, what? I go back to the screen, and it says 7 o'clock, sold out. And I'm like, huh, it must have sold out while I was pushing the buttons.
So, fail. We all walk back to Grand Central together in time to see that we have had the worst possible timing for a train that we could have possibly had.
Yeah, we pretty much showed up at the train station.
And it's like the train going to Beacon left just now.
So we got to sit there for like an hour until we can get on the next train. And...
Yeah, I went up to my office across the street and surfed the internet for a while and got a drink, and it was a good time.
Yeah.
We're not really going to cover the New York Comic Con so much yet because I got to put together all the interviews I got, and suffice to say, it was fun. It was what the New York Comic Con is. Their gaming content was not the kind of gaming content you get from a gaming con. It
It was
more
a
like
whole bunch of booths, a lot of which were selling comics. Some, selling old comics, some selling new, some selling cheap, some selling expensive, some selling junk.
but their gaming content, they really hyped it up. But it was basically the showroom portion of PAX, but there was no play games portion to go along with it.
Mm.
So it was like you could go play the new Ghostbusters game or Fear 2 and all these things. And I did a bunch of that, but there was no like Luke Crane's running a Burning Wheel game. Check it out.
Well, upstairs, in the upstairs part was like a whole...
Yeah, I went up there.
There was like a WotC fest going on up there.
You know what was going on up there? You want to do a dungeon delve? They had that.
Yeah.
They had that covered. If you wanted to play a WoW raid very slowly with pen and paper,
Yep, but
they had that covered.
They did not have, like big open area with a bunch of tables and a bunch of board games.
I gotta say, more and
Of
more,
course, it's a Comic-Con, so, I mean, WotC is pretty much the extent of the gaming you can expect.
it amazes me that Kineticon is fast becoming the best gaming con I attend, and it is
Well-
not a gaming con.
Well, we got to go to those Dex/Dreamation cons in North Jersey, see what they're like.
yeah, but I'm both excited and leery of things like that because I used to go to a lot of.
Well, because their website looks like it's a very LARPerish RWAG kind of situation. You know what I'm saying?
Well, part of it too is that those are very old school gaming conventions.
It is indeed, yes.
I mean, I used to go to a lot of gaming cons before I went to anime cons or even knew they existed. Living in Michigan, I'd go to like Michicon when I was in middle school and play D&D with a bunch of 40-year-old guys and hang out there. And my parents barely understood what it was I was doing. They dropped me off at some convention center and picked me up a day later and have no idea where I was or what I was up to. But those cons, there's a certain time in your life when they're fun, and I don't know if I can deal with old school gaming cons anymore.
I don't know. I haven't gone to, quite as many, and I got to go there at least once. I mean, Luke Crane goes, so it's got to be something going on there.
Yeah, but speaking of which, we're going to have a lot of good stuff from the New York Comic Con because I got a quite in-depth interview with Luke Crane about the Mouse Guard RPG. And then I got a very enlightening interview with David Peterson about the Mouse Guard RPG. And I also learned that Luke Crane slayed a dragon with 36 dice.
Uh-huh.
It was quite a tale.
Is this Burning Wheel? You're not supposed to have dragons.
No, you're supposed to have dragons, and you're only supposed to defeat them with 36 dice.
All right.
But yeah, we'll cover more of that later. It's Wednesday night, not Tuesday, so anime, manga, comics, and I don't really want to talk about the Comic-Con because all my news from the Comic-Con is gaming stuff.
I don't know. There's some comic news of the Comic-Con that, I guess none of it really care about so much.
It's more that I don't have all my stuff together and I don't have my interviews together, and I'm going to let you all in on a secret. I didn't put it all together and I don't want to edit it tonight. That's the only reason we're pushing this off.
Here's another secret, right? A Comic-Con really, doesn't have a lot of stuff going on for us. I mean, if you're someone who's like, really follows like, the DC universe or something, there's going to be all kinds of news like, this is what's going to happen to Batman. This is what's going to happen to Superman. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. But if you're not into that, the other kind of news you'll get there is like, oh my God, maybe a little bit of what TV shows are coming, or maybe like what toys are coming out.
Well, no, you mostly...
all this sort of dreck that we also don't care about.
What you mostly get about it is if you want to see people who do the geeky stuff that you like.
Oh, exactly. But I'm saying there's no news. There's stuff to do, but there's no news.
I was really saying news. I was saying more commentary, just review the con. It's not worth an entire show, but it's worth a front bit at least.
Yeah, I guess.
I got enough to say about a front bit. I didn't put all my stuff together. I have all these interviews on the Morants that I didn't even listen to yet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and also Gabe and Tycho were there, and we talked to them.
We learned about how they handle the booths.
They handle their booth pretty much the same way we handle our booth, except that they have people who are paid to deal with stuff for them, and we don't.
The other problem with them handling their booth the way we handle our booth is that it's not easy to talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, if you come up and talk to us at a con, especially if we have a table, half the time we'll be like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, we got to go. And then we disappear.
Yeah, and so, us actually legitimately trying to talk to them for reals, not going to work out too well when they're at the booth because they're just like, yep, all right.
I have one
great.
secret, one little tidbit that I did discover. It's more gaming stuff, but I
think they were coached by Robert Koo.
I think they were too, but I got to get this out there. At the Penny Arcade Expo, we brought up Burning Wheel at the Q&A thing, And I remember that Tycho, I'll use their pseudonyms.
I think, yeah.
Their stage names.
He said specifically, Burning Wheel is the shit. That
Yes,
is what he said.
He said those words exactly. There are videos of it.
Mm-hmm.
So on Saturday, I went up to the table and I was like, you guys are awesome, blah, blah, blah. So you said Burning Wheel's awesome, blah, blah, blah. And he looked like a deer in headlights.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, oh shit. And he had no idea what I was talking about.
No clue.
But don't worry, we've got machinations along that front, and I've got a ton of interviews, and there will be New York Comic Con coverage in the future. If you really want to know what happened at the con and you can't wait another 2 weeks, search for New York Comic Con, and they have a link to like all the coverage in the world and all the YouTube videos in the world.
Yeah, really? It's mostly people buying stuff, people talking to artists, you know, that kind of thing. This, you know, it's a Comic-Con. It's a bunch of booths. It's not like, you know, events.
Well, no, there's a ton of events, but only if the problem with Comic-Cons really is that the events are usually they'd be really fun to go to. Like I'd love to go to a lot of these panels, but you either have to be press so you can just skip the line or wait for like 2 hours.
Even then,
or pay $5.
A lot of the panels, you know, they're not fan panels, they're industry panels, and they're mostly just, you know, they're not so exciting unless you're really into whatever it is that, you know, these people running the panel do. Like if you're, you know,
which I am, because the IGN Theater had a bunch of Astro Boy stuff, and they had
yeah, that was the theater though. That's just mostly showings. It's basically a video room.
They also had some early releases of trailers and things, and a lot of people saw Astro Boy stuff that made them hopeful as to the movie.
Yeah, but I mean, all trailers, it's very easy to make a hopeful trailer. It's very hard to make
But I point out to you the Dragon Ball live action trailer.
Yeah.
Someone thinks that's good. Someone thinks that
Dragon Ball fans think it's good.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
No, they don't.
They're not. Those aren't real Dragon Ball fans then.
Anyway, do you got any news here?
Well, actually, there was a comic news at the Comic-Con that, while is not so exciting, I think, but it is something that I'm sort of going, maybe about, right?
Superman died again?
Well, no.
Batman died?
No.
Batman's gonna die?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Batman actually might be dead. I forget what the deal is. I don't pay that much attention, but there was like some comics called like Batman Rest in Peace, and I think there's some comics called like Battle for the Cowl or something, so I think there is like... I think Batman died and everyone else is like fighting over who is Bat or something like that. I don't know.
But see, clearly that's only happening in an alternate universe that eventually will collapse into the real universe.
Yeah, I have no clue. That's like hints I get from like pictures.
You know what I'm gonna say?
That I might have seen for like a second.
I have my own personal rim canon Batman. It's pretty simple. It is BTAS followed by The Dark Knight Returns, and there is no other Batman.
All right, so Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man, right? So if you don't read Marvel Comics, you probably don't know this. If you do read Marvel Comics, you almost definitely know this, right? There are regular old Marvel Comics like, you know, Amazing Spider-Man or The Avengers or X-Men, right? And then they have these Ultimates, and it's like Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate whatever, right? And the Ultimate ones are sort of separate, right? Like a few years ago, they started with like Ultimate Spider-Man #1. It had nothing to do with anything else that, you know, I mean, they were sort of retelling the same stories, but it wasn't the same, you know, it was different. And it was sort of like a clean slate, and that way it would be really easy for someone to sort of, you know, catch up on the whole thing without reading comics going back to the 60s. You know, you could just read Ultimate Spider-Man, and it's available in trades, and it's all modern and, you know, relatively recent. So you can just get all of it. So it was no problem. Just read all the issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. So what they're doing, apparently, is, you know, they're going to stop all the Ultimate books. They're like, you know, going to be like, oh, that's it. And they're going to reset them to #1 again. Now, at first I was
now, are they going to retcon this BS together into something or what?
Well, you know, the Ultimate stuff all on its own sort of goes together. It's like a self-contained, cohesive unit, right? And now they're resetting the cohesive unit. So I was like, you know, maybe, is it just they're just going to keep doing that? That way you can sort of get onto these like short things, and then, you know, they can, I don't know. But apparently the deal is, it's actually, even though it's resetting to #1, it's still going to be the same Ultimate Universe, just fast forward in like 2 years, you know, 2 fictional years in the future from whatever year it is in the Ultimate Universe.
Uh-huh.
So if you've never read them before, you'll be able to just start reading at the new number 1.
I have a hunch.
But if you have read the old Ultimate, and now you're reading the new Ultimate after it resets, you'll sort of see some stuff that other people don't see.
I have a hunch. My guess is that within 10 issues, there is going to be very important stuff from previous ones that's going to come back in. It won't make sense to new readers at all.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like, hey, you're a new reader. Come and read the Ultimate Universe. We reset it for you,
But
right?
they didn't really.
But then you're going to, basically you're going to have to they'll hook you in, and they'll hook you into going back, right, and buying all the trades of the original Ultimate Universe.
We're definitely going to start seeing issue 289 Marvel X-Force
No,
Y.
actually, there's actually
And-
a lot of discussion about those issue number things, right?
When I first was reading comics,
They were all over the place.
until I saw one of those, which I didn't actually see one right away. I thought that was a joke. I didn't think that actually happened.
No. See, the thing is, right, that they stopped doing that around the late 90s, early, they just don't have those anymore, right? So the problem with that is they didn't change the way they wrote the comics. So basically, you would read something, someone would make a reference to something that happened in some other issue, and there's no little note there saying, see issue 36 for more info, Stan the Man. That wasn't there. So now you just have no fucking clue, and you don't even know where to look. So it's like, should they keep those in to be stupid and corny? Should they take them out?
You know what the correct answer is? Have
You shouldn't-
stories together such that you don't just, like, the Green Arrow shouldn't just randomly show up out of nowhere, and he hasn't been in the story yet. And then the only way that makes sense is if you know that he was involved in some other comic, and that's why he's there.
Yeah.
Proper storytelling? I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like-
Don't assume, if someone's reading a book, you have to assume that they have not read any other book ever, and you have to do that for every single book. Now, that doesn't mean, like with the Stan Lee book, where every single issue they take 3 pages to describe, the origin story and how they got their powers and what powers they have, every single issue. That's a little bit unnecessary, right? But, it's still very, very possible, to tell us. And if, you can't, do that in a single issue, then don't have issues, have trades only. If you don't print, if
You know what
every
really got me?
self-contained unit you publish needs to stand alone. So if an issue is too small to stand alone, you shouldn't have the issue. It just shouldn't exist.
But anyway, one thing, if they actually just reset, if they would ever just say, look, we are making a new comic called Spider-Man. It's starting with issue 1. It is in no way, in any way, connected to any previous work that we have ever published.
That's what they did with the first Ultimate Spider-Man.
But now,
But now it's connected to all the other Ultimate books.
yeah, so great.
And now the new Ultimate Spider-Man, which is going to be number 1 again, will be somewhat connected to the old So it's sort of like, they did do exactly what you just said when they came out with the Ultimate Universe years ago.
But it has to just
The
stay
thing is-
Spider-Man. It can't. I don't want to read X-Factor, X-Force, and Excalibur to find out what
Well,
happens.
you don't.
in
You only
X-Men.
have to read Ultimate, and the thing is, you really don't have to read all the Ultimate books. You just have to read some of the other Ultimate books.
But that's already. I'm not happy with that.
Yeah, it's like, they made a new universe that was smaller and self-contained, and you can easily get all of it. But
Because I read X-Men, and then during the Executioner's Song, I read X-Factor because it told me to, and then I read X-Force, and then I found out about Excalibur, and then I quit reading comics.
yeah, it's like, when someone reads Naruto, all they ask is that you read Naruto, right? And if you need to tell a story about some other characters...
Oh my god, imagine if Naruto, suddenly Goku shows up and, saves the day, and then says something cryptic to Naruto, and then you gotta go read...
Right, no. It's like if you need to say concentrate on the villains of Naruto for a few chapters, right? You don't put out another separate manga called, Naruto Villains, number 1, and say, yeah, this takes place in between Naruto chapters 36 and whatever. You just make the next chapter of Naruto be that. Instead of, if you need X-Men to cross over with Spider-Man, right? Don't tell people who read Spider-Man to go read a certain X-Men issue. Just take that issue and make it the next issue of Spider-Man.
You know what they could do? You You know how they could still make money? If they did that, if they released them in trades instead of issues.
Oh, yeah.
So it was big stories. Then, like, there'd be the Spider-Man trade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Spider-Man trade 7 is also the crossover with Blah. So if you read Blah 7, it's also the crossover with Spider-Man. It's
So
the
it would
same
say,
thing.
so basically it would be like, this is Spider-Man Volume 7. This is also X-Men Volume 3.
Yes, and if you want to make money, you publish them with different covers in separate lines, so the nerds buy both.
But they have almost the exact same thing in them.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's foolproof.
Yeah, that is actually somewhat better than, what they do already.
But anyway, I don't really want to belabor this point because I think you all know how we feel about these issues.
Yeah, I think I will buy the new #1, just the one issue, because I get it at a huge discount, just to, check the deal, to know what's going on. I'm not going to buy #2, but I got, it's going to cost me like $1, so I'll check it.
All right. I got a bunch of quickies here because I feel like they're all worth mentioning, but they're not. I don't have a lot to say about them. Penguin no Manda is getting a movie.
I like Penguin no Manda.
I do too, so I'm kind of excited about this. I expect it to be fan subbed, and I hope to see it. Spice and Wolf, which was a show that had one great episode and then never went anywhere, and I stopped watching it, and it turns out it's crap. Has a sequel.
Yeah, there's a lot more, it feels like there's a lot more anime sequels lately and a lot less new shows. I keep seeing like such and such and such, Monogatari, such and such, Gaiden. It's like, all right, really?
Those are just words, though. I mean,
the thing is, at least
that's like saying Final Fantasy and Phantasy Star Online.
That
are the
is
exact
one
same
thing.
thing.
One thing I can say though about a lot of these anime though is the sequels is that they actually come up with like clever names for the sequels rather than just calling them 2, or 3, or they actually change the name of it, or they put a colon, like it'll be such and such colon something instead of just such and such 2.
But seriously, the first episode of Spice and Wolf, I actually, despite the fact that I expected it to be some crap moe relationship garbage show, it was really like good and well animated and cool, and the style was good and the atmosphere was great. And I thought it was a great episode, and I expected a lot from that show, surprisingly. And then I learned to never reset my hopes higher, ever, from my initial expectations of anything.
I just keep expectations low across the board.
They were so low, and the first episode was enough to let me reconsider. And I was so wrong. That show went nowhere. And now it's getting a sequel. Why?
Well, everything's getting a sequel. I think it's just because they don't, I don't know, are they risk averse? Usually when people are risk averse, they go with the sequels instead of with the new properties that are, much riskier.
And I got one more bit here. Akira Toriyama.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to talk about Akira.
No, saw the trailer, Kaneda, for the Dragon Ball live action movie.
So he does nothing to do with the live action. He didn't know it exists or what?
Well, he saw the trailer and I'll give you the quote, but one, if you have not seen this trailer yet, it is the feeling that you will get is identical to the joke in Anime News Nina about a live action Pokemon. Like, good God. But he had this to say. I'm quoting the translated statement. As the original creator, I had a feeling of, huh?
I mean, I don't even like Dragon Ball, but if the guy who made Dragon Ball says, huh?
No. He actually, the quote goes on. That was out of context. And he basically says, but, these are all ultra high caliber people, and maybe it might be a way for the fans to appreciate it as a new Dragon Ball of a different dimension. Perhaps this might become the great masterpiece of power. It's hard to tell.
I think if you want to appreciate some Akira Toriyama, I think you should
Dr. Slump.
You should look for some Dr. Slump.
Oh, man.
Or you should, just play some Chrono Trigger.
I gotta admit, the original Dragon Ball is pretty funny.
Well, the regular old Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z,
GT.
not Dragon Ball GT.
No, Dragon Ball is pretty funny.
Regular old Dragon Ball, if you understand it and as a comedy and you get the jokes, especially if you can, read the manga, first of all, and get, there's a lot of Japanese jokes in there that are harder to get. If you can do that, that's pretty worthwhile. But Dragon Ball Z anime, it's not happening.
Nah. So
I mean, if you're gonna watch a fighting thing, at least watch just like Fist of the North Star or something, because at least heads explode.
So
at least
I gotta bring up one more thing because this is just too crazy. So this is a little bit old, but not many people have seen it unless you dig through Anime News Network. Konami claims that Upper Deck is counterfeiting Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Wait a minute. Usually counterfeit. I mean, there have been counterfeit cards since way even before Magic, right?
Konami is suing Upper Deck,
I mean,
who distributes Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
The counterfeit cards were always like, shady dude in the mall. They were never Upper Deck legitimate card maker.
Now, as I don't understand what's going on because it gets really complicated. Like, Upper Deck sued them back, and there's this other company involved now, and everything's going crazy. But as far as I can tell, my guess, and there is no defamation, libel, or slander here at all, because this is a random guess from an uninformed dude. I'm saying that right now. I don't want to get sued. My best guess is that Upper Deck might have been just printing counterfeits or allowing counterfeits to be printed and or distributed through them in order to get around some internal licensing or quantity deal with Konami. And there was probably there was probably a very tenuous business relationship between all these companies. And it was the business relationship was probably basically just a beehive.
Yeah, I don't know.
Someone came over and knocked that beehive over, and all the bees are coming out.
See, I'm out of collectible cards games, so I really don't pay attention so much. And
quote.
So I don't even know who makes who publishes which games. All I know is that WotC makes Magic. That's really all I know.
Hearing the name Upper Deck really surprised me. I did not expect Upper Deck to be involved in something like this.
Yeah, they're a legitimate game maker. Why would they be counterfeiting cards? So it's pretty strange. I don't know what the real situation is.
Identified Upper Deck as the source of 22 counterfeit rare cards being repackaged and sold by Vintage. And
I don't know.
Of course, they go on to say this threatens to undermine the integrity of the game, including...
Because the game has integrity.
Well, see, I don't think they are aware of the fact that the champion at Yu-Gi-Oh! In Rochester, New York, was none other than a 20-ounce already opened bottle of vanilla Coke. That bottle of vanilla Coke won one of the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments in Rochester.
Yeah, he sure did.
And you might think, no, I'm not kidding to a degree that you would be surprised about.
So, yeah, I don't know. This actually, thinking about this story got me, thinking again, right? What if there was a collectible card game, right? Just like, Magic or whatever, right? But there were actually anyone who wanted to. It was an open gaming system, and anyone who wanted to could print cards. And any card that was actually printed properly and, wasn't marked on the back.
But then it's not
in any way.
But then, Scott, that's simple. That's not a collectible card game. It's a customizable card game.
Well, I mean, they're all CCGs, customizable collectible card.
But customizable and collectible are possibly exclusive to one another.
I guess it would make it, there wouldn't be a lot of collecting going on.
You wouldn't have to worry. There would be no, the old Magic the Gathering problem of, I have more money than all my friends. I bought the best deck. I always win.
Yeah. But then again, the thing is, you would have to have the cards, you couldn't just print the cards yourself unless you had a really, really good printer because they would stand out from the other cards. They would have to be printed,
the
properly.
Answer is to make it a game that can be played on either laptops or DSs.
But I was thinking, right? Let's say there were 3 or 4 companies that were all publishing Yu-Gi-Oh cards, right?
Yeah.
It would be this crazy race of every company would try to make more and more ludicrous cards. They would all just make I win cards. So that way you would buy from their expansions instead of the other people's expansions. It would get really silly.
Oh, okay. There's a little more information here now.
All right.
The lawsuit originally actually was filed against 10 John Does.
Uh-huh.
And recently they amended it. Doe number 1 and 2 are now Upper Deck's 2 operations in California and Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
There are still 8 more John Does. This is a wide and frightening ring of counterfeit. And one last thing, they've got a picture here. I don't know if this is legit, but on Anime News Network, there's a picture of a authentic card and a counterfeit card. The counterfeit card looks like I printed it out of an inkjet.
Yeah, so if Upper Deck was doing it, why wouldn't the counterfeit cards be basically exactly identical to real cards?
Well, here's a posit, if you will. Perhaps,
in fact, they wouldn't be counterfeit. They would just be extra printings of legitimate cards.
An enterprising individual who worked at one of these Upper Decks was taking the files used to make these and
using them on a shitty printer,
printing extras and then selling them
yeah,
in some way.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, does Konami tell Upper Deck exactly how many of each card they're allowed to print?
I'll bet they do.
That's sort of crazy.
I'll bet they do.
It could be, I'm feeling there's some sort of situation here of, Konami, gave Upper Deck the license to print the Yu-Gi-Oh cards in the U.S., right? But now they're like, hey, we should print them ourselves. We'll make more money. We need to get Upper Deck to stop. That sort of thing.
But at the same time, these counterfeit cards seem to actually exist.
Yeah, but I mean, anyone can make counterfeit cards.
Yeah, but it's just, there's too many bees coming out of this hive, and I can't figure out what's going on yet.
Yeah, it's not, I have no clue what the deal is, because I don't even know who makes the stupid cards.
And no, not the bees.
Not the bees.
But anyway, it's not the bees, it's things of the day. So I got a lame one because I thought it was cool. Toriyama, since he came up, actually drew a picture of Ayumi Hamasaki as Goku for an album that was coming out.
Oh, really?
And it's kind of cool. So here's a picture of it. You can look at it. It basically just looks like Ayumi Hamasaki in her current form dressed up as Son Goku. I say her current form because she is basically a transformer.
Yeah. Jeff Lemire did an album cover for somebody.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It looks pretty cool.
I should do an album cover for someone.
Yeah, you get on that. So I don't know, it was a week or two ago, I forget, right? I took an episode, was it a Tuesday episode? To educate the punk kids about the day the music died, right? And I don't think it was a Wednesday, so I have to re-educate on Wednesday for people who did not listen to the other show, right? Basically, imagine if, Elvis, the Beatles, and Led Zeppelin were in a plane crash and they died. Well, how different would the world be today? Crazy different. Super crazy different. Well, back in the day, 50 years ago, a plane did crash with 3 musicians of that caliber on it, and the world is crazy different from how it should be. And the 3 musicians were Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper.
If you don't understand why the world is different, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure can really clear that up for you.
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah. Absolutely. So, to do a thing of the day, to help educate the Punk Wednesday kids.
To talk slowly because you're trying to think of what you're actually going to say.
No, I know exactly what I'm going to say.
Oh,
I have here an anime music video to one of the Big Boppers. Well, in fact, the Big Boppers' most popular song ever.
Oh.
And it is also one of the best music videos of anime ever. It is a classic, and it has never been a thing of the day.
It has never been a thing of the day?
It has never been a thing of the day.
Because I have thought about using it as a cop-out thing of the day at least 10 times.
I'm using it as a non-cop-out thing of the day right now.
Well played. Clever girl.
Yes, indeed. I needed to come up with, and this really is. It's one of the best music videos ever. One of the greatest songs.
There's not much else we can say.
Yeah. Great anime. You should check it all out.
So recently, we were treated with a screening in a theater of an anime movie, which is a rare enough event to where we pretty much can't pass that up.
Well, I mean, whenever they happen, we see them. That's pretty much, I think I've seen every anime that was in theaters for the past, 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I saw Innocence in theaters, and then it's been just about almost everything since that. I missed Tekken King Crete, which I'm sad about, but that was my fault.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that one.
That was entirely my fault.
But I saw Innocence. I saw Miyazaki movies going back to Spirited Away.
Yep. Because remember, at RIT Anime, we rented out the local actual movie theater to show Spirited Away.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Good times. But we were able to see a brand new anime movie, Sword of the Stranger.
It's not that brand new, isn't it? Actually from 2007?
It is from 2007, late 2007, but it's as brand new as movies like that are for people like us in America.
Yeah, it's effectively brand new in the U.S. I mean, I don't remember ever seeing fan subs of it, even though they may have existed. I don't remember seeing, BitTorrents or it being. I don't remember seeing it in theaters before, and there's no DVD of it.
I honestly did not know this existed until they announced the American release.
Me either.
But Sword of the Stranger is, we're going to review it. Don't worry, no spoilers here at all. We're not going to talk about it super long because there are few enough anime full-length motion pictures that are out there, let alone that are good.
That are new also.
That I could not in good conscience spoil one, because if you're an anime fan, you should seek out pretty much every anime movie that comes out in America, like without question.
Yep. Even if it's, except Pokemon. You don't need to watch the Pokemon movie.
Are you kidding? Snorlax is more ripped than you.
That's like the first Pokemon movie. You don't need to watch the other ones. I mean, they're on like Pokemon movie like 20, all right?
You can't see 20
You don't
Pokemon
need to watch
movies.
like all the 100 One Piece movies either.
Oh my god, yeah. True, I'll give you that. Well played.
Yeah.
But Sword of the Stranger, directed by, now this, usually we talk about the director, but I honestly didn't know anything about Ando. And he didn't do a lot that I have a lot to say about, so I'm afraid I don't have much to say. I could do a bunch of research and pretend I had something to say.
No, but the key thing here is Studio Bones did this movie.
Yes, now, you might, if you don't know who Bones is, Cowboy Bebop, Escaflowne.
What was the other one?
Didn't they do FMA too?
Maybe they did Wolf's Rain.
Yeah. So, of course, this movie looks amazing. It's done amazingly. It's got a lot of talent behind it. It's a big movie. Looks like it was high budget, really well animated, and
Relatively high budget
compared to movies I have seen.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this wasn't like a major it didn't have as high a budget as like the Skycrawlers or anything, which had plenty of big time monies, but it had a bigger budget than, say, I don't know, a One Piece movie.
But Sword of the Stranger is pretty much, I'm not going to say it's a throwback, and I'm not going to say it's an homage necessarily, but it is definitely, if you like an old, like, samurai in Japan kind of movie, either live action or anime, this is like already gonna be one of your favorite movies.
It didn't feel to me like they were doing an homage or a throwback or anything nostalgic or anything like that. It felt to me like they were just making a movie in a well-traveled genre instead of people trying to avoid well-traveled genres or do something new or do a combining genres or a twist. They just sort of said, hey, let's make a samurai movie. All right, sure. And they did.
Yep. And I think the reason why, I feel like a lot of people will look at it and think at first impression, this is homage or something like that. But really, I think a lot of the feelings I had like that were due to nostalgia for anime like this that I just haven't seen in a long time. It was a fun, engaging, interesting. It wasn't like the great movie. This was no Citizen Kane here. This was no Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, this isn't a movie that's gonna knock you off your feet and go, oh man, that was like a movie for the ages, gonna be remembered forever in greatness and greatness.
And
no.
it's not going to give you any particularly profound feelings. It doesn't.
Yeah,
tread any
it's
new
not
territory.
exactly the most intellectual thing. It's people cutting each other up.
But it was something, I guess maybe because the last two anime movies I saw were the new Miyazaki film, which is fantastic, but it's deeper and there's more to it than this, and Skycrawlers, which is a very
heady,
yes, Oshi-tacular movie.
Oshi-tacular? I think it's Oshi-tastic.
No, because it's Shiro-tastic. It's Oshi-tacular. Because Oshi does not tasm all over you when you watch this film.
I don't know. Maybe it's just Osha-awesome.
I mean, Shiro basically
Oshit.
Oh, shit. But Shiro basically, it's kind of like Wagner. If you go to a Wagner opera, Wagner basically rises from the dead, comes out on stage, and ejaculates all over the audience for like 7 hours.
I don't know. Does he have that much in him?
Are you kidding? Have you seen any of his opera?
I don't know, but I haven't seen his balls.
Shiro manga are like that, only with Shirotasm. He Shirotasms all over you.
Right.
But Oshii doesn't really get it all over you. He kind of puts it there, and you have to kind of go and get it from him. Like, if you go up to him and say, Oshii, I see you made a movie. I would like you to fill my mind with things that I barely understand and make me feel kind of bad about myself by the end. He will fulfill that.
All right, so...
But you won't get it all over you.
So Sword of the Stranger is a samurai movie. It's in Japan. There's a kid and his dog, and they meet a samurai, and he's dangerous.
It's kind of a two strangers come... Well, you know what it is?
Well, it's got the buddy movie aspect, right? They don't get along, but they stick together, sort of like Samurai Champloo, right? It's like, why are we together? Oh, okay, we stay together. Why are we together? I hate you. Nah. Oh, shit, I'm unprotected. Yeah, we really should protect her, right? You know, that sort of situation.
Yep, and in general, the movie really, like...
We act like we hate each other, we really like each other.
The plot, the story, the characters, like, all the basics of this movie, from the buddy part on, they feel at first really predictable and trite. Like, you look and you're like, it's obvious what's going to happen. And the movie follows like a very expected format, but at the same time, it pulls an Escaflowne in that Escaflowne was just a magical girl fantasy show. Like, that was it. But it was so well executed that any feelings that the genre had been played out, or any feelings that it was just rehashing or it was predictable, were completely destroyed by the fact that it was executed probably as well as that genre can be executed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of shows and books and you know, just genre storytelling these days, all across the board, people are trying to, you know, do things different. And people sort of, it feels like people have forgotten how to just, you know, pick a genre and just tell that kind of story, even though that kind of story has been told a million times, tell another one and just do it really well. And I mean, if you just tell, you know, I mean, there's a reason people have been enjoying samurai stories for many years. There's a reason people have enjoyed, you know, adventure stories for many years, or buddy stories.
There's a reason why
they're good.
Why Yojimbo was turned into Fistful of Dollars, which was turned into Kaze no Yojimbo, and there's a million other movies that are basically the exact same movie.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a good kind of story that works. So there is a lot to be said for just taking a story, a kind of story that has been told a million times before, and telling a new story that fits right in line with the old stories, but is just well done.
But this movie departs from that a little bit in that it tells the old classic story in the classic style, and it's really well executed. But there are, I'd say, like 15 moments. Not really, like the plot kind of goes along the way you expect. And I'm not going to talk about the end because while the end is able to be seen coming in some ways, it's not in other ways. And again, I don't want to risk spoiling anything, but the rest of the movie will periodically, you expect something because you know what this genre is, and you know how these movies go. And then something just completely different and crazy and sudden happens instead. Like, a character that you expect a certain thing to happen with just, like, fucking gets killed, like that.
Yeah, there are actually a bunch of characters in the movie, right? And I don't know, it felt like, you know, sometimes you watch like a summary movie, right? For something, like a TV show, and there's a summary movie, that the summary movie will have characters that were somewhat important in the TV show, like side characters, and they'll sort of stand out in the summary movie, but they won't get a lot of screen time. So it's sort of like, they're sort of like, huh, what's up with that? And it feels kind of weird, right? This movie had some of that, where there would be a character who obviously was designed, you know, they didn't have a name necessarily, or maybe they did, but they had a design as an important character would have, you know, not just a background character, right? And maybe they would get a little bit of screen time, a little bit of prominent screen presence for short moments, even though they weren't really involved in the plot very much or anything like that. You know, they didn't really hinge anything on these characters. But, you know, then in some fight or other, the character would die, or they would kill someone, or something would happen. And it's like, you know, wow, that they put in like this whole character, designed them significantly, and then they were sort of actually, you know, they didn't even really need to be there. That could have just been a background, you know, looks like everyone else character.
And I gotta say, when that is done well, I really enjoy movies where all the character, like where the character that is just a bit character, even if it doesn't all come out on the screen, if the character is themselves a strong character for what little part they play. It's like it's very easy to make movies and films where you have your set of main characters and everyone else is just a background character. But like in Sword of the Samurai, every single person on the screen has character. Like when there's a bunch of soldiers lined up, when there's a big thing going on near the end, like all their faces are different. And when something happens, it's kind of an epic scene what happens. It is definitely one of those, oh snap moments. When someone gets put up on that pole and then someone goes, well, it's time, and does something.
Yep.
That was a good scene. But you see all these soldiers reacting to this event, and they all react differently. Like they took the time to make every soldier be a little bit unique and react in a little bit of unique ways.
Well, not every single soldier.
Well, no, not
but
like you look and you see like a bunch of soldiers reacting in a positive way, but a bunch of other ones mixed out kind of balking, and then a couple like ready to go in the opposite way, but then kind of stopping when.
Yeah, it's like it's not just like, you know, the leader of the army and then his, you know, just followers to do exactly what he does, you know, and they don't even have faces. It's like, you know, his like head few guys actually have a little bit of character to them, even though you don't really know their names or anything. And, you know, they have, you know, the distinctive, you know, designs. Like obviously someone designed them as if they were a character with a name. And then they sort of act on their own a little bit, even though the screen time is short.
And that's also, I think, what gave this movie the ability to have all these kind of oh snap moments that kind of pull you out of the genre and make you go, oh wow, and like you forget what kind of movie you're watching and just get drawn into the moment of they totally just killed that guy. Wow. or I'm trying not to spoil anything because there's a couple of really good ones there.
Yeah, there's quite a few good ones.
There are some scenes where, in particular, one guy dies at one point, and the way he dies is so reminiscent of the scene in Snatch where someone else dies.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Now, a few things I got to say, right? First of all, one thing that bothered me, and this isn't the movie's fault, right? But in the theater we watched it in, there was almost definitely something wrong with the projector,
Oh,
right?
clearly the bulb was like burning out and they didn't replace it.
Yeah, and we watched it basically, it was a digital projector, so basically it was just like watching, you know, a DVD on a giant screen, right?
Yeah, we definitely have to watch this movie again in a better format.
Yeah, because like there were scenes, you know, most scenes you could see everything that was going on, but there were some where like, you know, it was just dark, right? It's like I remember one scene in particular, like someone drops a dark object onto the floor in a dark room and then it sort of rolls around, and it's like you can hear it rolling, but I couldn't see it rolling because there wasn't enough contrast because the bulb in the projector was dying. Right?
Well, it's not relevant to our review at all. So
no. But you know, it sort of bothered me a little bit, and it was sort of in my mind while I was watching it, whatever. But also, we watched the dub. There was no subtitle version.
Yes, let's review the dub at the end.
All right.
Because I don't want dub review to get on or in my movie review.
All right.
Because you kind of got to review them separately. Because the movie itself stands on its own.
All right. Well. It is. What else should we say about the movie?
Well, I had a lot to say.
All
right. So you're done. You got nothing.
I don't know. I mean, you know, it's a samurai movie. I don't want to spoil it. You know, how many times we got to say that? You know, it's a buddy movie. It's fun. Yeah, and I think that's really what it is. It's just fun. You know, it's not anything epic. It's just you go in, you watch this, you have a lot of fun for how long is it? 90 minutes?
Well, I'll put it this way. This isn't a spoiler, but the movie is a movie where you start with a small plot that grows into a bigger plot, and clearly there is a large epic plot building toward the end that involves the world. But the way it happens is that half of that big plot doesn't happen through the movie. Like you see things in the movie that allude to the future of Japan, like the rise of shoguns and all the beginning of a long era of political turmoil in Japan. And there's a lot of kind of setup for the real world history of Japan in the movie, which adds a lot and is interesting. And two, the one thing that they do is that the big epic plot has mystical trappings, but the movie is straight up real world, no magic, none of that BS at all, really.
Well, there is a little bit of science fiction going on.
Well, very little.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it sort of fits. And actually, it's hard to notice if you don't pay attention. You might be like, what the fuck? But it's pretty important. But it's, you know, if you don't pay attention, you're not gonna realize what the deal is.
I guess the movie is there is depth here to where while this is just a fun movie and you can just enjoy it, you should pay attention too, because it does have some things to say, and there's a lot of allusion to history, and there's a lot of really good just background and atmosphere.
There's also a lot of allusion to, like, it's almost like there was like you were expecting it to go in a certain direction, but really instead of it going in that direction, they just leave something unexplained. Like, it's like, hey, that seems like that could have been caused by time travel. Are they going to explain time travel later? And they just never do. And they just leave it at that. It's like, well, I wonder how that was then. And they just don't, because it's not relevant to the one story you're paying attention to. So it's almost as if, like, you're watching this story unfold, right? And you're getting these side bits from other stories, but those aren't the story you're watching unfold. So all you get is the side bits from them. And it's sort of hinted that there may be things that happen in those side stories, of these other characters or something that are, crazy or might be worthy of stories, a whole movie on their own, but they don't tell them to you. So you're just sort of, left with these hints and the feeling of, a larger movie than what you're actually getting.
But at the same time, the movie does not disappoint in that it doesn't just turn into the big epic magic thing at the end.
No, it doesn't.
The end is very much one of those real world mundane endings.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for a robot at the end, but it didn't happen.
Well, that's the thing, because the basic plot is that there's this boy, and the movie begins. He's running away from a burning temple, and a monk is like smuggling him out. He runs away on his own. He's got this dog. The dog is so cute and well animated, by the way.
The dog is badass.
The dog is badass.
Not so cute.
The dog is cute and badass. Also, the main character kid is also like really funny and cute. Like,
there's actually a lot of humor going on in this movie.
There is, but it's really kind of, I don't want to say slice of life, but it's humor that is contextual. Kind of like when music, like background music in a movie is contextual, as opposed to like, it's like the difference between a movie that makes a joke that is for the benefit of the viewer versus a movie where a character makes a joke for the benefit of another character. There's no like external humor unless you're the kind of person who's going to crack up when a guy gets shot with 1,000 arrows.
Oh man, that was pretty funny.
That was like but like all the humor is humor between characters, which makes it feel a lot more real, because sometimes it's lame humor, but it's lame in this real way. And the characters are really fleshed out and really complex and really three-dimensional.
Speaking of getting shot with 1,000 arrows, right? The movie has, like usually a samurai movie will have like lots of gore. I mean, look at even like a Kenshin, right? It's got like all blood all over the place. Talking about the OAV, not the TV show, right? And this had, some level of gore type stuff going on, but it wasn't like Ichi the Killer or anything, The
gore was few and far between, and when it happened, it was there to impress upon you that yes, people are dying and this sucks.
Yeah. It's like it wasn't, extremely gory for the sake of gore's sake, but it wasn't toned down gore for the sake of not grossing you out sake. It was like a guy got cut. Look, we're going to draw a guy who got cut.
That's what happens when you get cut.
Yep. And, so some of the parts were a little bit, ew, but they weren't crazy ew, It was sort of like, just right. And the, cutting didn't happen that often that you were just, it was just blood all over the place, It was just in the fighting scenes, there was blood. And in the fighting scenes, the action was sort of done in a somewhat interesting way, and where all the action was really fast, and it was lots of, sort of blurry motion effects going on. And, they kept giving you like a bunch of different crazy camera angles during all the action scenes.
Well, it depended, because it alternated between the shaky cam, zoom in, zoom out, like a real person trying to watch what's going on and cutting to the angles. But it would also cut to long shots of very, like, well choreographed bits of the fight.
Yeah, sometimes it was, a little bit hard to follow, like every single move in the fight, like, a punch and a kick and a slash and a dodge.
I don't know. I didn't really have that problem. Like, to me, I felt like the fights were either they were choreographed in 3D completely, and then they figured out what angles they wanted and they put it all together, or it was so well done that I feel that way.
I don't know. During the fight scenes, I just sort of felt like, fight. I couldn't really, like follow the fight so much
See,
until
I don't know.
except for when someone actually got hit. Then it was like, oh, it's the Hozones I got hit. All right.
I feel like I disagree at least halfway, and that I feel like a good half of the fight scenes were choreographed and very direct, and I felt very in the action. And
I didn't feel that much in the action. It just sort of felt like, action, but not following it, like there was any sort of flow to the fight, or I, could like be like, I wasn't feeling like, for one side or the other.
All I can say is that I pretty much completely disagree with you on that point.
Nah, you
Well,
you
no,
watch like
I do.
well, I mean, I didn't say don't, but I'm just saying.
I know what you're saying.
You watch like the fights in Cowboy Bebop, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like he ducks and then he dodges to the side and then he kicks over the table, right?
So
but,
yeah, that one fight, there weren't that many fights like that.
No, but there weren't that many fights really. If you watch Cowboy Bebop again,
yeah,
right?
but there are a lot of fights in this, and enough of them were similar to that, or had at least one or two long shots within them that were like that.
I think that the fights, I think what it was is that the fights didn't have lots of punctuation in them. They were just sort of like these flows. So
But you just said they didn't have any flow.
No, it was just a smooth.
I'm basically, because I feel that your criticism is unwarranted, I really want you to back it up because I don't see it.
The fights were just just like a smooth blur, and
so they were smooth,
really...
so they had flow.
These are all subjective terms here.
Yes, but you said both that the fights had flow and that they didn't have flow.
Well, leave it at this. I wasn't feeling the fights. I mean, I could see that they were going for an interesting style in the fights, but they didn't feel, that exciting. It just felt like, a blur of action that was not, you couldn't really follow it. And then only when like at the end you saw, oh, that guy won.
I'm going to go the opposite and say that I really felt like I was in the fights and I felt every moment of them.
I would prefer a different kind of fight, but I see that they were going for something that, I haven't seen anywhere else.
But I guess I still disagree.
You can disagree all you want.
Okay, we'll have to let the listeners watch it and see.
Yeah.
But this movie is there are so many points where the main character is doing stuff. Well, the samurai guy, no name, and all I can think is, I'm too old for this shit. This definitely was like a cross between an I'm too old for this shit movie and a samurai movie.
Yeah.
Because while it was a buddy movie, it had a lot of I'm too old for this shit buddy movie as opposed to other kinds of buddy movie.
Yeah, other kinds of buddy movies are like, they're not too old for it. They're just sort of reluctant to be with the other person. It's like they would be doing it on their own if they weren't with the other person. But this is like, if I wasn't with this other person, I wouldn't be doing this at all.
Yep.
I'd be sitting at home going,
Plus, I gotta say that
so they're not only reluctant to be together, they're reluctant to even be doing anything.
We got to wrap this up because it's late and I'm tired and we got people coming over and we got a crazy weekend coming up. But suffice to say, I'm going to keep saying those words tonight.
Stop saying suffice to say.
Suffice to say, this is.
And plus, the other thing is you keep saying suffice to say. You're supposed to say suffice it to say. You're leaving out the it.
Suffice to say, however, I believe can work grammatically, and I will back that up.
What are you sufficing to say?
Because the implied
you're supposed to suffice it to say.
No, you realize that the implied sentence is it would suffice to say that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying.
Well, you're leaving out an it, so you've got no subject.
But implied grammar is perfectly okay in a lot of situations in English. Yes, you can have implied subjects. In fact, in imperative sentences, go is a perfectly valid sentence.
That's
because
a command, though.
No, yes, Scott, that's what the word imperative means. It's an imperative sentence.
So you're telling, basically when you say suffice to say, so you're basically telling the listener to suffice?
Scott, that was an example. I was not using that as the absolute rule. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Who's supposed to suffice?
Suffice to say, or it shall suffice to you for me to say that this is a really fun, fantastic movie that I highly recommend you seeing.
It's a fun movie. I don't know if I would use the word fantastic. I would say very good or well above average. That is also worth seeing. It's not, it's not bad.
I'd call it fantastic because I had a great time watching it.
I had a very good time watching it. I wasn't thrilled.
Plus, I point
but
out,
I was very,
Scott,
very content.
You're always so down on things. it's a movie that I'm willing to, and not only willing, but want to see at least one more time. That alone puts a movie in the top 20% of movies I've ever seen.
I could live without seeing it again.
I want to see it again. So that
I do
already
not
makes
actively want to see it again. But
Okay,
if it was on, I would watch it.
Okay, we've established that you're down on things. We
established that you're far too up on things. You know,
the listeners would say that you were far too off on They Were 11.
They Were 11 was way up, and I think the listeners are dumb.
All right, I think
If
we're
you
done.
don't think They Were 11 is great, you're stupid.
We may or may not do a show tomorrow. We'll see. Next week we'll be back on track with the normal schedule. And good night. I don't know what I was doing there. This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geek Nights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geek Nights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geek Nights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.